Hey there, and welcome back. We're doing another deep dive into mindset rebuild today. We're going to tackle that feeling of being stuck, hitting those walls on the journey, that what's next, feeling.
It really is something we all encounter. And it seems like you've been grappling with this lately, trying to figure out how to break free and move forward.
Yeah, right on. So we're going to look at some insightful writing and questions to help unpack this. I'm Alan, your host, and I'm joined by Rebecca, our expert at untangling those tricky mindset knots. Ready to get unstuck?
Always up for a good mindset challenge.
All right, let's jump right in. One of the first things that really struck me is this idea of linear thinking. It's like we've got this picture in our minds, like this perfectly straight line, leading us from where we are to where we want to be. But life rarely cooperates with that neat little picture, right?
So true. Life throws those curveballs. We hit unexpected roadblocks, make wrong turns. Sometimes we even find ourselves going in circles. And that's when clinging to that rigid linear thinking can make us feel incredibly stuck.
Like we set ourselves up for disappointment right from the start. And I think that's where the shoulds start to creep in. I should be further along by now, or I should have achieved this by this age. But those shoulds, they're often based on like external expectations or arbitrary timelines that might not even be relevant to us anymore.
Exactly. And they trap us in this cycle of self-criticism and pressure,
Mhm.
which can be incredibly draining and demotivating. But what's fascinating is by simply acknowledging that we're stuck in this linear thinking, we can actually start to shift our perspective. It's like hitting the pause button on those negative thoughts and giving ourselves permission to explore different paths.
And that's where the power of asking a different question comes in. Instead of getting bogged down in, why isn't this working, or how do I fix this?
Yeah.
What if we tried asking, what's one thing I haven't tried yet?
hmm
Or what would I advise a friend in this situation?
It's like changing the lens through which we view the situation. Yeah, it's about shifting from a problem-focused mindset to a possibility-focused mindset. By asking ourselves more empowering questions, we start to open ourselves up to new solutions, creative approaches, opportunities that we might have missed before. We become more curious and less judgmental, which allows us to approach challenges with a fresh perspective.
I love that. Curiosity over judgment. It's like that quote, the problem is not the problem is your attitude about the problem. And speaking of shifting perspectives, one of the questions that really resonated with me was, if I knew this would take twice as long, would I still be as stressed? It highlights how much of our stress and feeling stuck often stems from self-imposed pressure and unrealistic expectations.
It's a fantastic question.
Hmm.
Sometimes just acknowledging that we're putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves can be enough to diffuse the stress and open up space for more creative thinking. It's like giving ourselves permission to slow down, adjust our expectations, and embrace the journey detours and all.
I totally relate to that. In fact, this reminds me of a project I was working on a while back. It was a big one, lots of moving parts. And I had set a pretty ambitious deadline for myself. But as things often do, it started taking longer than expected. I was getting super frustrated, feeling stuck and overwhelmed.
It's easy to fall into that trap when we're so focused on the outcome and not the process. So what happened next?
Well, I remember this idea of asking a different question. So I asked myself, if I knew this project would take twice as long, would I still be as stressed?
Hmm.
And honestly, the answer was no. That simple question shifted my entire perspective. Suddenly, the pressure lifted. I felt calmer, more creative, and I was able to approach the project with renewed energy and focus. It wasn't about giving up or lowering my standards. It was about adjusting my expectations and giving myself grace.
What's fascinating about that story is that the situation itself didn't change. The project was still the same, the deadline was still looming, but your experience of it completely transformed simply by shifting your perspective. That's the power of cognitive flexibility in action.
Exactly. And that's another concept we're going to unpack. It's about being able to adapt our thinking, see things from different angles, and not get locked into one rigid solution.
Cognitive flexibility is crucial for navigating the inevitable ups and downs of life. It allows us to be more resilient, resourceful, and less likely to feel overwhelmed by challenges. And as we've seen, asking those different questions is a powerful tool for training our brains for greater cognitive flexibility. But to really understand how this works, we need to delve into the science behind it. Think of it like this. When we get stuck in that linear thinking or those shoulds, it's like our brains are stuck in a rut. We're fixated on a single solution or just one way of seeing things, even if it's not working. That's what's called cognitive fixation.
Ah, so cognitive fixation is like that tunnel vision. That keeps us from seeing other possibilities. Like we're so focused on one specific outcome that
Yep.
we miss all the other paths that might lead to something even better.
Exactly. It's like wearing blinders. And what's fascinating is that there's actual science behind this. Studies have shown that when we're stuck in those rigid thought patterns, certain areas of our brains become overly active, while others get suppressed.
So it's not just a feeling. There's a real neurological basis for this sense of being stuck.
Absolutely. And that's where cognitive flexibility comes in. It's like giving our brains a workout, helping them break free from those ingrained patterns and create new neural pathways.
So how do we actually do that? What are some practical steps we can take to cultivate more cognitive flexibility?
Well, as we've been discussing, asking those empowering questions is a great starting point. By challenging our assumptions and exploring different perspectives, we're essentially forcing our brains to work in new ways, which strengthens those neural connections associated with flexible thinking.
It's like we're building mental muscle. And the more we practice, the easier it becomes to shift out of those rigid thought patterns and embrace new possibilities.
Precisely. It's like learning a new language or a musical instrument. At first, it's challenging and requires conscious effort. But with consistent practice, it becomes more natural and automatic.
So it's not about finding some magical overnight solution. It's about making small, consistent shifts in our thinking that lead to big changes over time.
Exactly. It's about building those mental muscles so we can approach challenges with more creativity, resilience, and resourcefulness.
And this all ties back to the core principles of mindset rebuild, right? It's about recognizing that we have the power to change our thinking, break free from limitations,
Yeah.
and reach our full potential.
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is that these tools and techniques are accessible to everyone. You don't need any special skills or resources to start cultivating a more flexible and empowered mindset.
You know, one of the things I find so empowering about Mindset Rebuild is that it cuts through the noise and gives us practical, actionable steps we can implement right away. It's not just about feeling good. It's about equipping ourselves with the mental tools we need to create real change in our lives.
I couldn't agree more. And it's about remembering that personal growth is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, challenges, and setbacks. But by cultivating a mindset of flexibility, resilience, and curiosity, we can navigate those challenges with greater ease and confidence.
So to sum it all up, when we find ourselves feeling stuck, it's not about forcing our way through or waiting for external circumstances to change. It's about taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and asking ourselves, what am I not seeing?
That simple question, that willingness to look at things from a different angle, can make all the difference. It opens us up to new possibilities, new solutions, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And to make this even more actionable, there's a simple 3-step process we can use to put all of this into practice.
Let's hear it.
The first step is to simply acknowledge that you're feeling stuck. Don't resist it. Don't judge yourself. Just say, okay, I'm feeling stuck right now. Something needs to change. That simple act of acknowledging the feeling can be incredibly powerful.
It's like giving ourselves permission to pause, reflect, and shift gears. Instead of fighting against the feeling, we're creating space for curiosity and exploration.
Exactly. Then the second step is to ask yourself a new question. Choose one of the examples we've discussed today or come up with your own. The key is to shift your focus away from what's not working to what could be.
And finally, the third step is to experiment with an answer. Take a small action, however tiny, inspired by your new perspective. It could be trying a new approach, reaching out to someone for support, or simply giving yourself permission to rest and recharge.
That action, however small, can create momentum and start to break down that feeling of being stuck. It's about taking those small steps one at a time and trusting the process.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
And speaking of journeys, I think we've covered some incredible ground today in our exploration of feeling stuck and the power of cognitive flexibility.
It's been a fascinating deep dive into the mindset rebuild philosophy and how it can help us break free from limitations and unlock our full potential.
So to wrap things up, you don't need a new life. You just need a new outlook. When you feel smart, remember, it's about shifting perspective, letting go of those rigid expectations, and asking, what am I not seeing?
And remember those shoulds we talked about. They can be real momentum killers. So next time you catch yourself in a should trap, try flipping it around and ask yourself, what could be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about opening ourselves up to those new possibilities, even if they're totally different from what we planned. Who knows? You might stumble onto something even better.
And that's what I find so inspiring about Mindset Rebuild. It's about empowering ourselves to break free from those self-imposed limitations and create a life that truly aligns with our values and aspirations.
It's about recognizing we have the power to choose our thoughts, choose our actions, and ultimately our outcomes. That's a really empowering message, isn't it?
Absolutely. It reminds us that we're not victims of our circumstances. We have the power to create the change we want to see.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your insights on feeling stuck and the power of cognitive flexibility. It's been a really enlightening conversation.
It's been a pleasure. I always enjoy these deep dives into mindset rebuild.
And for our listeners, if you're looking for more no-nonsense mindset shifts to unlock your potential, be sure to subscribe to Mindset Rebuild. You can find it at mindsetrebuild.substack.com. Until next time, keep diving deep.